right, shalom, 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 shalom. I want to start off this lesson by giving all the praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rachak, Kodash. Double honors unto my elders and my apostles, a great millstone, which are the men that rule well and taught us His truth. Peace, blessings, and salutations to you like this always. And just, I'm in transit right now. I wanted to make a quick lesson. Really, it's like a scripture of the day, but I have a few precepts that I also probably going to quote anyway. But it's really like a scripture of the day. But the inspiration of the lesson came from Sirach 20 and 30. All right, I'm going to read it. But also really came from, I was talking to some Shariam and one of our elders here at the DC church after camp. And we was just, conversating, breaking bread. And, this lesson came to mind after that conversation we had because, because the true inspiration of this lesson obviously is the scriptures, the precept I'm going to read, but also really out of the conversation, what I took from it was, being mindful, for you brothers that's been in this for longer than like a year or two, or, for you brothers that might have been in the truth for like, 3-4 years, you're getting settled in, you get out of the monk phase, if you will, the monk phase of the truth where all you do is study, you might not even have a job, you might still be living with your parents or something like that, or living with one of your parents, right? But then, the Lord elevates you and, you start to grow in this thing, and you start to get involved with certain things that are, lawful, all right? You're not going off or nothing like that, but you're doing things, all right, that sometimes, you might want to keep it from the believers. There's certain things that just we're going to do that it's better for it to remain private. Not that you're doing something wicked or anything like that, all right? But there's just certain sides, all right, that of us that certain people just don't need to see. Most importantly, younger brothers, all right, or young believers. There's just certain things that are better to keep to yourself because certain people haven't reached a level in the faith yet, or they haven't reached a certain level yet to where they can be exposed to certain things, because when you first come in this truth, you're not balanced, you're over righteous, and certain things can cloud young believers' judgments. Certain things that you might be into, all right, they might look at it as like, is this what men of the Lord do? And you're not being wicked, it's just certain people don't understand yet because they're brand new to everything, and you don't want to, you don't want to be a cause of somebody to stumble, which we know ultimately, if you're of the elect, you're not going to stumble at anything, because your destination is deliverance, right? But at the same time, we don't want to be, the one to be out here causing offense, all right? Because you want to be on overly doing social media, or just certain things that you're putting out that you do on your own free time, all right? That might cause some people to look, to give you a side eye, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Because hey, like I said though, there's certain extracurricular things that we can do, all right, that you just probably shouldn't show certain people. I'm gonna read this Sirach real quick. I know I've been kind of rambling a little bit. Sirach 20 and 30, and it says 31, better is he that hideth his folly than a man that hideth his wisdom. Right? So it's better for you to, whatever you do on the side, because folly is just foolish behavior. There's just certain extracurricular things that, brothers get into outside of camp, that's best for you not to expose to young believers or younger brothers, because they're not on the level yet to be able to handle it. Hey, for example, going out and drinking and things like that. Some young brothers, they aren't on a level to be able to handle doing things like that. They aren't on a level to handle those things. They might be real young, might have just turned 21. Don't know how to, never really even, they might be people that have never even drank or gotten drunk before. You don't want to cause somebody to stumble and to go off, all right, by putting them in that environment. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just certain things that you have to be cautious of. I know, we had this one dude on the outside, and really this was not even really the best example, but it's an example I can think of off the top, where at camp we had mentioned, seeing harlots is not wicked and it's not going off, according to the scriptures, which is true. It's not going off. It's not wicked. But it caused him to stumble because, you know, his mind, he wasn't, because really, ultimately, you know, if he really did, you know, fall from the belief, you know, it was meant to be. But if, you know, if he didn't, you know, it was just something that, you know, he just wasn't ready to hear yet, you know, because he was in a situation where, I don't want to, you know, put his business out there. I'm not even going to name him, but, you know, he might have been in a situation where, you know, he had a woman, you know, and he just has a certain view of the world when it comes down to that. And for him to hear something like that, you know, it pretty much, you know, bugged him out. You know, it was just like, damn, like, you know, that's right, that's okay. He, you know, because his mind went towards, is this what men of the Lord do? Because I remember having a conversation with him, because he asked me, he called me, he was like, is this men of the Lord wouldn't do something like that? That's wicked. And it's just like, you know, there's, because he wasn't ready to be exposed to that. You know, now I ain't saying specifically that's what I'm talking about, but what I'm saying is there's just certain things that you shouldn't expose to you know, younger believers out there. I'll give another example. You know, certain extracurricular activities, you know, we got a lot of brothers that's ex-military that are still into going to places like the shooting range and, you know, having fun with that. Well, there's just, hey, that's something that you, for one, you should not be uploading to social media, because that could be used for evil and blame towards the ministry. All right, but if that's something that you're going to be into, you know, keep it to yourself. You know, keep it within a certain circle. You know, because that's not wicked. That's something you can do on your own time. You know, we're all men, right? But there's just certain things you shouldn't expose to believers or to certain people, man. Because some people are gonna view that and be like, oh, we're supposed to, you know, young people that are young in the faith, they're gonna look at it as wicked, you know, because they don't know any better yet. You know, next thing you know, people brothers gonna be getting slandered. You know what I'm saying? Might be a woman that, you know, finds something on social media, you know, because you're not doing nothing wrong by having your extracurricular activities, but they're gonna try to quote unquote expose a GMS, you know, and it just creates a big mess. So it would be a wiser thing, all right, to hide your folly, to hide the things that you do, your extracurricular activities, man. Because hey, outside the, you know, when you get, brothers know, man, when you get out of that monk mode and the truth, all right, and you start to step out, you know, for my young brothers, you know, you start dating around and things like that. You know, you do things on your free time, you go out, have a drink, you know. Hey, some of those things, man, sometimes it's best not to show certain people those things, man. All right, put certain people in a situation to where they can, you know, view it. You know, now I ain't saying brothers can't do this, can't do that. Obviously, you know what you're gonna do, you know, outside is, you know, it's your business. All right, but we already know, man. If you know, if you're not being wicked, you're not doing something wicked, you know, it's not something that's evil unto you, then you know you're good. It's between you and Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you know. But I'm gonna read this again in the GNT, and it says, Sirach 20 and 31 in the GNT. But a person who covers up his foolishness is better than one who keeps his wisdom to himself. Right? So, you know, it's better to put those things that you're into to the side. You know, it's best not to overshare. You know, it's best not to share with certain brothers certain things, man. You know, now I ain't saying from every single brother. I'm talking about, you know, exposing certain extracurricular things to younger brothers. You know, it's best not to do those things because you don't want to cause them to stumble. Because most importantly, you don't want to put them in a situation, not just to look at what you're doing as, oh, you're going off. You know, you don't want to put them in a situation to where now they feel like, oh, well, you know, this older brother in the faith, he's doing this, I could do that too. But then they can't handle certain things, you know, because at the end of the day, we're all, you know, brothers that are growing. All right. And then, hey, man, there's levels to it, man. There's just certain things young brothers can and cannot do, you know, so it's better to put it away. All right. And like it says, better than one that hideth his wisdom. Hey, at the end of the 24, we all know we got to, you know, put the wisdom out there, man. We can't hide it. All right. We got to, hey, this the whole reason of us being in this is to share the wisdom that was given to us by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, you know. But really the point that I wanted to make was in that first part of the verse. You know, it's better to hide the foolishness, so to speak, right? The extracurricular things that you're involved in. All right. right, it's best to keep it to yourself, man. All right, not everything has to be on social media. All right, I know there's certain things that we're gonna put on there. You know, hey, brothers got their personal Instagrams and put family stuff on there. You know, but there's just certain things, extracurricular things, man, that just shouldn't be you know, shared to everybody. And there's certain activities you don't need to invite you know, younger brothers to. You know, it's best to keep it to yourself. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say real quick, man. That's all I wanted to bring out real quick through the spirit. Just a quick little in transit, quick scripture of the day, you know, Sirach 20:31. Just wanted to bring that out, make that point, man. All right, man, I hope this was edifying, all right, and exhorting as well. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem R'Chakudash. All right, double honors unto my elders and apostles, great millstone, which are the men that rule well and taught us his truth, man. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect as always. Shalom.